The next thing we're going to paint is the chimney. Since the HO scale chimney is so small, I'm going to start out with a macro. I used a macro lens to take a picture of it, and it's 3 stages. The chimney that you get, which is laser cut, it's only about a 1/4 inch on the side, and then after it's been painted, and then finally after we put the mortar in, and we'll show you each of those steps. But if you haven't already purchased the kit, I thought it may be a little confusing, so we'll show you the 3 versions. And this you need a very fine brush for. And I'm going to use a Tuscan red for the brick, and then a granite gray for the topping, and I'll show you that in a second. If you really want to, and you have a fine brush and a fine hand, after you've given it the first coat, you can go in and do individual bricks in a different color. I don't think I'm going to do that today, but if you do that, the red that you will see is sort of bright, but at the end we're going to come through here with some just ordinary wall spackle that I've got, and we're going to fill in the cracks with it, and that also will leave a little film that'll dull that down. So if you are going to try individual bricks, excuse me, it's slightly different color. You want to make them sort of contrasty, more than you would think right off. Now the way I do this, since I got to get all 4 sides, I take my knife, put it in there fairly solidly. Then I can get to the sides. So let's start with the red. I'm going to start by painting the brick. And then after I paint the brick, I'll maybe let it dry for a second, depending on how I do. Whoops. And then I'll do the silver. So I'll start with the brick. Well, before I start, this definitely is going to require the glasses with my eyes. I hope I don't get in your way, but I got to see it to paint it. So like I've said, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm sure of that. All right. So we want to keep the cracks open. You know, the grooves, the brick grooves. So we don't put too much in. But we need to get it covered. And we just keep spreading it out. And we get that top row. And yes, I'm holding my breath when I do that. Okay. I'm going to clean my brush on the other side a little bit. And there we go. Pull some of the paint out of the grooves a little bit too. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, just rotate around. Again, that's a little too much paint, so I'm gonna take a little off. It's a little better if you don't put enough. If you put too little on your brush, not too much on your brush. All right, I'm going to hold my breath again here. Well, I'm going to clean my brush a little bit. Now I'm going to hold my breath. There we go. So far, so good. A little more around. A little too much. You don't start with too much. You don't have to clean out the cracks as much. Like I say, those cracks are all going to be filled with spackle or plaster, the stuff you use on your sheetrock. Joint compound, it's called spackle. I've heard it called several things. You can, had to hold my breath there. If you find somebody building a house that comes in, they probably are using 20 gallons of this stuff. So they'll typically give you a couple ounces of it, you know, just for being a nice person. Tell them what you're doing. All you need is a couple ounces. Could they spare it? And I'm sure they'll give it to you. Or you can go to Home Depot and I think buy probably about I don't know, maybe even a half gallon of it. I don't know. But you can buy smaller containers. You don't have to buy the big 5 gallon or 10 gallon, whatever they are. Oop, a little too much again. If I start with less, I do better. There. That looks pretty good. I'm fairly proud of myself for doing that. All right. I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes before I put the silver top on. So I'll just lay it here. There, whoops. That's going to give me a problem. So, put my handy toothpick there, and it doesn't. All right, I just gave it a couple of minutes, and it looks fine. So, I'm going to try to put on the gray now, which is sort of just a capstone type thing that chimneys have. A lot of times it's just concrete, but it's typically a stone with concrete. All right, I'm going to be doing a lot of breath holding on this and not very much talking. So, and if I get on the red, this is the hardest thing. If I get on the red, I just repaint the red. Okay, side one. All right, side two. I ought to cut my losses and turn off the camera right now and say I'll do the rest of it offline. This is going pretty well. Wow, side three, I'm bound to screw up now. Things are going too well. They never go this well for me. This is a job, if you're working with a teenager, you can have the teenager do. Well, that looks pretty good. I'd like to get, this is where I screw up, where I just want to make it a little better. That's the hard part. That's the side. Whoops. I didn't. So now I'm going to do the top, and I'm not going to do the flue. I'm going to leave that brown, the burn from the laser. So I just go around like this. You can later use some pastels or something to darken this if you want, like they're, you know, like it'd been used. These things are never silver by after they've been used, or gray after they've been used. Oops, did I? No. I'm still okay. All right, I am. I'm going to do a little more painting right there. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm pushing my luck. Okay. So that's pretty good. Now, we're definitely going to leave this at least 24 hours before we do the put on the spackle. And the reason for that is the spackle is moist. And if this paint isn't totally dry, when we rub it in, and I'll show you how, it'll start rubbing the paint off. So as you can see right now, it looks fairly dark. The brick looks dark. But that will lighten up quite a bit when we put on the spackle. All right, so that's the painting of the chimney. The final step with the chimney is to fill in the joints between the bricks with like a mortar. As I mentioned before, we're using just regular joint compound that you get at Home Depot. You just need a tiny little bit, so a lot of times neighbors will have it. You can borrow it probably if you don't have some. I'm going to have a paper towel, because I'm going to do this with my finger. Now this chimney has been drying for several days, so I know the paint's good and dry. You don't want to do this after a short dry, because this is wet. And what it'll do is it'll start making your paint run. Because what I'm going to do is just dip in there slightly. That's too much, but and I'm just going to rub it right in. That wasn't enough in the end. And I don't want the real, there, see? All right. Then I'm going to wipe it off. And I'm going to go around the chimney and do that. Just a little bit. I'm going to wipe it off, put a lot on there, but then I'm going to wipe it off with my finger. See how nice that makes it look? Got to get it all off. I'll come back in the end and make sure I haven't got any big spotches of it. Let me get all four sides here. Now this chimney is only about a 1/4 inch on a side. So it's a very small item, but it's laser cut, and it's got those little grooves that fill beautifully with this. All right. So I'm going to keep cleaning my hand off. I don't want that. I gotta. All right, and over here. So I've filled in all the cracks. I think I'm going to hold on the side a little bit. I'm going to have to go around again, but I'm going to get the top off. There. And see how it also darkens the brick, or I don't know what they call it, darkens it. It makes it tanner, or more brick colory. All right. And there's my chimney, my final chimney. I'm going to lay that aside, let it dry. That all seal in there. It'll take maybe a couple hours to, I'm going to try, I don't know what's going on there. I'm going to try one more time on that side. There we go. That's a little, I'm gonna wet my finger a little bit, but that dried a little more than I wanted, a little more quickly than I wanted. All right. I'm going to set this up aside, and I'll come back and take a close-up of it for the video later. We're all done with that except for installation.